Don't call a real estate agent, not before you watch this video. If you've started saying, maybe we should sell, and you've said that out loud, I want you to put the phone down for 90 seconds because selling the house is the last decision that you should make, not the first one. And that's the mistake. There are 7 steps to review in order, and I'm going to show you why. The first one, it changes everything about your thought process, and then what comes after it. I'm Weldon Hobbs, and I help you align your life and wealth goals with your real estate decisions so your home works for you and not against you. And I've watched people move for the wrong reasons at the wrong time. I want you to hit that like and subscribe button, and let's get into it. Point number 1, know what's actually at stake. So some people, they come out of the other side of a life transition better off, and some, they don't. And that difference is almost never luck. That gut pull to jump straight to a real estate decision right in the middle of this transition that you're going through, whenever you have the most variables in your life at one time. Look, that is normal to feel like you want to do that. But I'm going to tell you, that normal is going to cost you. And I'm not here to talk you out of selling your home, buying a home, whatever your situation might be. Sometimes that's the exact right decision. You want to be closer to the grandkids. There's a career move that you're trying to make. You lost your spouse and the house, it holds more weight than you can carry right now. Or maybe you're just maintaining 4 bedrooms and using 2 of them, and the stairs are not getting any easier. Those are real reasons. If that's you, good. You have your why, but you still haven't answered the question of how to do this well. And here's an example. So a past client of mine, she wanted to stay in her home after her husband had passed away. But she waited 5 years to do a real budget. And in that time, she looked at her bank account and slowly it was depleting and she was not making enough to support her lifestyle. It was not a lavish lifestyle. It was just the day-to-day. And when she called me, she was 4 months behind on payments. And she called me asking how to save her house from foreclosure. She had thought that she was asking a real estate process question, but in actuality, she had a math question. Now, I could have explained the foreclosure process, but that wasn't the only risk to her living the life that she wanted. And frankly, it wasn't solving any underlying issue. Other clients who jumped straight to real estate and they handed a check straight to the IRS that they never saw coming. But there are also, if you continue down this line of thinking, homeowner association rules that could be more restrictive than anybody warned you about. And 18 months in, you wish you had never bought that house. That's when regret shows up. And that's the whole reason that this channel, it exists, to get you out ahead of it. And once you can see that, you can put those choices in order and think the whole thing through smartly. Now here's point number 2. Start with the life that you actually want. What do you want the next 10 years to look like? What's changing? Why? And notice that staying in your home, that is an option. If you want to stay right where you are, that is a goal. It's the one people look past, though, because they don't feel like they're doing anything, and therefore it's not a decision. But it is. And it has to be set up for success the same way a move does. So design that decision purposefully. And I'm going to use my grandfather and grandmother as an example here. They were determined to age in place. That was their goal, and they were very clear about it. He had the money to do what he wanted, so wealth wasn't the constraint in this case. And he made that call on his own terms, knowing exactly what he was accepting in terms of risk. But at 90 years young, he fell during the middle of the night. And he was on that floor until my grandmother found him the next morning. They got him to a hospital, and unfortunately, he passed away 2 days later. But here's what I rest well knowing. He knew that staying in that home was a risk. We had talked about it purposefully. He priced the cost of that decision in his own head, and he accepted it. And that decision, it was not wrong by any stretch. He made that decision with his eyes wide open, but sitting in that bed when the end was near. There were a few things that he'd wished he'd done differently, and preparing the home to better age in place was one of them. Okay, fair enough. And while tactically, we all wish we had do-overs, strategically, the macro, the big picture, he left a legacy that our family actually wants to follow. because he stated his plan out loud and he decided purposefully, knowing that there were potential consequences. Make sure that you know why you're doing what you're doing. Say that plan out loud so the people in your life, they know the why behind it. Now, on the other side of the coin, if moving is part of your path forward to be closer to grandkids, a career, a simpler place to take care of, those are also good reasons. But a good reason, it does not account for the rest of the plan. It doesn't tell you when to move. It's not going to tell you what it costs, and it doesn't tell you the unintended consequences. So the client that I mentioned, she knew what she wanted. She was a widow for 5 years, and she knew she wanted to stay in that house. She never said it out loud to anyone who could help her plan for it, and she never took the steps to make it realistic financially. And I'm not even talking about the maintenance yet or the improvements it takes to age in place gracefully. So say that life goal out loud to somebody who can actually help you think through it so you do it well. And then hold on to it, because all the other decisions thereafter, they're going to get measured against that. Are you moving towards that goal or further away from it? Now, she missed her chance to do that. In a perfect world, you haven't missed yours. Moving on to point 3, find out what the life that you actually want is going to cost. It's more than money. Then when I say wealth, I mean money, time, ability, mental bandwidth, what you have, what you're actually able to do, what you're carrying around every hour in your head. That last one, that is a real cost, and it has to be accounted for, even though nothing ever is going to leave your bank account, right? Now, if you want to stay in your home, no mortgage or a very low mortgage, that doesn't mean no cost, right? There's the property taxes, the insurance renewal, there's the maintenance that you've been putting off, there's the electrical costs. If you're in an area like ours, it's just shooting through the roof, no pun intended. And when you add it all up, that's a number. And most people, they have never actually added it up. They just know that it hurts on a monthly basis. And once you do that, then you can start to figure out how to optimize your budget so you can increase your quality of life. Now, a good example of this is you can now go find out if your state or your county has any kind of senior property tax breaks. And nearly every state has something, and the assessor, they're not required to tell you about it. You have to go find it, you have to go file for it, and then you have to make sure that you hit the deadline yourself. And most people, they never look. And if you lost your spouse, it's another way to think about this. Your tax situation, it has changed. The house math that you had before, it was built for 2 people, but maybe you don't have 2 people anymore. So recalculating that is nobody's job except for yours. And that's exactly what happened to my client. 5 years on a budget for a household that no longer existed. It sounds simple, but when you are overwhelmed, the basics can go to the wayside. Then there's the part people don't count as money at all. Say you want to age in place again. And there are 3 steps from the mudroom to the garage. Those 3 steps are a life and wealth question. And I don't mean it either from a home improvement perspective. Because if going down those steps gets hard enough, you're going to stop going outside. And you stop going out for a walk. And the day that you stop moving, mark my words, it's the day that you start dying. So that's not you failing at anything. That's the house quietly deciding how much quality of life that you can get. And you can usually fix it for a lot less money than you'd think. And if you're part of the ultra wealthy, you have what's called a family office. But by definition, that's not most of us. So that family office, they're basically, it's your CPA, your estate attorney, your regular attorney, then your financial planner. They're all sitting in one room and they're arguing out about whatever question you pose to them and figuring out the most efficient and effective response for your life. The rest of us, we get 3 separate appointments and 3 separate answers, and nobody in the middle making sure that all those answers work together, except for you. You at the kitchen table with a folder of scribbled notes, and if you're fortunate, a spouse to talk it through with. Those folks with a family office, they're not smarter than you. They're not smarter than me. They just have somebody whose whole job is to make the pieces fit together. What you want out of this step is 2 things: the financials and a clear-eyed look at what it cost you personally. So that way you can plan for both of them on purpose. Point 4, now and only now, we can start to focus on the house. Now, most people, they start here, but that's backwards, and you can start to see why. That's not a trick. That's what the order does. Because now real estate isn't, should I sell? It's this. What does the house have to do to get me where I said I want to go? If you're staying, the strategy is modification. A first floor bathroom, get better lighting, grab bars, a ramp that comes up to whatever steps you have in the house. You're building the house around the life. If you're moving, downsizing, right-sizing, it's a different job entirely. And now you're dealing with timing, price, how the house actually shows. And there are real trade-offs there that your agent should be walking you through. If you need every last dollar out of it, you're probably sitting on the market a little bit longer. If you can take a slight discount, it moves a lot faster. Which one you want depends on what that money has to do for you, and you settled on that last step. Now, let me tell you about somebody who did this in the right order. Another client of mine who found me through one of these videos. Her husband had passed, and the two of them had built a rental portfolio. So there was more moving parts in their scenario than anything I've mentioned so far in this video. But she knew what the life goal was. She wanted to retire well. So we built the wealth questions, and she took them to one of our network financial advisors and then ran the questions through her CPA first and asked what the smart way was to execute her plan. And she got her answer. Then we connected her with an agent from our network to sequence the timing and handle the pricing and the presentation of her home. That way she had a real estate strategy that lined up with her life and wealth strategies. And in this case, one of her goals was to minimize Irma impacts. It was coming out for her either way, but now she was planning for it. But what she got by going to the CPA first, before anything moved, was the chance to plan around it and plan for it instead of getting hit by it by surprise. So in this case, you have two different clients, the same kind of transition, but they had completely different outcomes. And the difference wasn't intelligence. It was proactive action. Point number 5, take stock of what you actually have to work with. And this next one is the piece that almost everybody skips, which is strange because it's the one that tells you whether any of the rest of this is actually realistic. When you're looking at a decision like this, take an honest inventory. What you know, your time, your money, the people around you. Start with what you know, okay? And then there are two halves of that. The first half is your situation, and you understand that better than anybody else. Nobody knows that house, that family budget, the family dynamics, the conversations that are there. Those are all real things to contend with, and they are yours. And some of you actually genuinely enjoy reading HOA documents. And if that's you, fantastic. Use it. Your skills are a resource. But the more important question is the other side of it. Where are you not strong? If taxes aren't your thing, then what do you need to ask your CPA given everything else that's going on in your life? If you're never going to get through 200 pages of HOA documents, do you have a real estate professional who's going to walk through that with you? Because that's the part that people miss. You know the generalities, but the details, that's what's going to trip you up every single time. You don't know what you don't know. That's being a normal person doing this transition once in your life. And where you come up short, that's a resource gap. It's not a character flaw. Gaps get filled by the right person, by the right support. But hear me on this because it matters. Filling the gap alone, it does not hand off the decision. It's still your decision. You're just not doing the parts that you were never equipped or trained to do. Then let's think about your time. Time is a resource, and it's the only one on this list that you can't get more of. Every month that you sit there with a question is a month gone. And that's whether you decided to do anything about it or not. Then when it comes to your money, and I don't mean what your life that you're looking for, what it costs. I mean what you actually have to move with. Your reserves, whether you can absorb a surprise right now without it turning into a crisis. And then the one that most folks, they don't ever count at all. It's the people. Go back to my first client, the one who waited 5 years. When I finally asked her why she didn't take action, she said she felt paralyzed, stuck. And she wasn't stuck because she didn't know. In her heart, she knew. She was stuck because she was afraid of the answer. And there's the difference. Suspecting is not knowing. The only thing that turns suspicion into knowledge is getting real information from the right person. That's a missing resource gap. It's no different from being short on time or short on money. And when it's missing, you don't push through it. You end up paying for it. So take stock honestly and find the one that you're short on. If it's knowledge, get the information before you decide anything. If it's time, that changes what is realistic for you, and you need to know that now instead of later. And if it's money, that shapes the entire plan. And if it's people, ask yourself this: who in my life can I take this to? Not who will agree with me, who will tell me the truth. And when my client, in this case, when she finally called, two things happened. One, I told her what I thought. Two, I sent her to a loan officer and to a financial planner to hear it from them as well. She deserved to hear it from more than one direction. And I wanted her to know whether we were missing something. I'm a big believer in what I call triangulating on the truth. So triangulate on the truth based on the information that you can track down and get multiple perspectives. Point number 6, you are the hub. So I always think of a wagon wheel. You're in the center, and the spokes are the different avenues of life or the people in your life, and you need all that to be working together in order to roll down the street. And every step so far has produced decisions, and now you have a pile of them that you have to have work together. So if you're in the center of that wheel, you're the equivalent of what I'm going to say the project manager of your life. It's your job to make it all work together. So based on if you want to stay or move, here's what you actually ask for your CPA. What does this do to my taxes this year and next? What changes if I wait? Or your estate attorney. How is this house titled? Or your financial planner. If you sell the house and you get money coming into your bank account, where does it go? What does it do to my income? I want a purpose for my money and not just a balance sitting in my bank account, because that's when money starts to leak. And if I stay, does it work? Do the finances add up? And I want you to notice something. Every one of those people, they're going to answer your questions well. Not one of them will answer the other people's questions. So the last question is the one that nobody's going to ask. Do their answers agree with each other? That's your job. That's being the hub, the center of the wagon wheel, and that's what that means. And it's the reason that people end up with 3 good answers and 1 bad outcome. Point number 7. Know what waiting is going to cost you. This is the last one, and it's the one that costs the most. Not making a decision is making a decision. It just doesn't feel like one. My client, she waited 5 years. Her husband had passed. She was running a house and a budget built for 2 people on an income that just became 1. In grief, in this case, it makes everything slower. That is an ordinary human feeling, and I'd never falter for it. But the clock, it keeps on ticking. By the time she called me, she was well behind on the mortgage and close to that foreclosure filing. I looked at the cash flow, and on her income, catching up, it just was not going to be possible. And she couldn't borrow her way out of it either. So the only thing left to decide was whether the bank took the house or whether she sold it on her own terms. That is not a house decision. That's what's left when the house is the only piece left. Now, if she'd walked in 5 years earlier, I can't promise you that she keeps the house. She might not have. But here's what would have been different. We'd have said the life goal out loud. We'd have done a basic budget, and we'd have come out of the other side with a number. This is what you have to make in order to stay in this home. And then she would have known. Earn additional income, cut the budget to the needed amount, restructure around it, or decide it isn't reachable and move while she still had years of runway ahead of her instead of being forced into the situation. Again, she still might have sold, but she would have chosen it on her terms. And waiting, it doesn't only cost money. It costs mental bandwidth. It costs sleep. 5 years of carrying a question that you can't answer is expensive in ways that are never going to show up on an income statement of any kind. And I'm not telling you the order guarantees everything works out. It doesn't. What it does do is it gives you the real shot at everything working out, and it shows you the risks inside the decisions that you already have to make. Think back to my grandfather. And in this case, he didn't get a better ending than she did, but he got there on purpose. He priced the cost of that decision and he accepted it. She never took the chance to price anything at all. There are no guarantees, but a decision that you make on purpose instead of one that gets made for you while you wait, that gives you the best chance of how you define success. I can't tell you what's right for your situation in a video. That depends on your goals and what you're working with. So that's step one, and it's the one that nobody tells you about. Seeing how the pieces work together, and that way you can plan that life goal first, then optimize for wealth, and then focus on the house. What I can do, though, is make sure that you know the trade-offs before you decide. And that's what we do. We walk alongside others and help them break down the decisions in front of them, whether that's downsizing, moving for a bigger reason, or figuring out what comes next after losing a significant other. Some people feel equipped to run all of those scenarios themselves, and some don't. Both are fine. But if you'd rather not figure it out alone, we can coach you through it. And maybe you don't need coaching. But what we also have is our no regrets network of values-aligned, vetted professionals, real estate professionals, loan officers, financial planners, and a free decision tool that's going to walk you through the questions to ask each one of them. The link, it's in the description below. I'm Weldon Hobbs, and when we're making major life transition decisions, we start with your life goal first, we optimize it for wealth, and then we focus on the real estate. That's how we get through life and real estate without regret. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.